All right. So now we'll get on to your platform. So in your words, what does the county board do?
All right. Well, the county board is responsible largely for oversight of the county offices, both appointed and elected. However, with the elected office holders, our only real power over them is the power of the purse strings when it comes to their budgets. As elected officers, they're allowed to set their own policies and run their own offices.
Okay.
So, largely, I mean, they do report to us at committee meetings, such as Justice or Finance. They will bring resolutions before us for discussions and votes. For example, Sheriff's Office or the Probation Department will go through outdated, no longer supported, or just plain broken equipment. They still have to ask the county board or the oversight committee and then the full board's approval to dispose of that or sell it. If they end up with unexpected expenses that they may incur, they will have to come before the finance committee and full board seeking approval through a resolution to modify their budget. Sometimes that involves accepting unexpected grants or donations, which means an increase in both income and expenditures. Sometimes it simply involves increased expenditures. We also set the tax levy for the various bodies, such as the Macon County Mental Health Board, although I think that's at its full levy now. But if someone is not at their full levy and sees an increased need, they have to come before the board to have the board approve that.
So with the tax levy, is that would that be an increase in taxes for taxpayers or just a reshifting of county funds?
It would be if that's increased, it would be an increase in the taxes. Okay. I'm trying to think how many years ago we did this. I'm thinking it's 8 years ago, or not 8, but at least 6 to 8 years ago, we actually decreased the levy for 2 years. Except that really hurt us when we caught COVID. We had taken it up by then, but we had spent down county reserves to the minimum allowed that they suggest you maintain for rainy day occurrences. And I forget how many days of operating costs you're supposed to maintain at the moment, but we had spent that down by decreasing the tax levy, and then had to increase it again when we ended up with revenue shortfalls and other things. So it doesn't just go up.
Right.
If we have the ability to do so, we've also taken it down.
Okay, that time 6 years ago, do you think it was a mistake at that time to decrease the levy?
Well, in retrospect, it probably was, but at the time, it looked like a good idea to take a little bit of the burden off our taxpayers. If things had continued as they were, it would have been just fine. But along came COVID and decreased retail tax revenues, which are one of the main sources of income, along with property taxes. So those were definitely impacted.
Mm-hmm.
Also, for the unincorporated areas of Macon County, not the incorporated areas, but the unincorporated areas, and I believe there are either 6 or 9. You got to excuse me, it's 72. My memory always doesn't work as sharply as it should. But for the unincorporated areas, we also established ordinances.
Okay.
But those ordinances do not apply to the incorporated areas, such as, for example, Harristown, Argenta.
Decatur, Mount Zion.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anything else you want to list as far as the county board's responsibilities?
Well, the other thing is one of the biggest functions and also biggest drivers of costs are it's the county board's responsibility, even though they're elected office holders, to maintain the justice component of our county. So the sheriff's office, the jail, the state attorney's office, the probation department, the public defender's office, those all are within our purview of responsibilities, along with the county highway department, the Macon County mental health system, seeing that it's funded at least. We also are a conduit for tax dollars collected, because that's the county's responsibility, not just to collect them, but to distribute them. The county is not required to do this, but we also assist the townships a lot of times in getting their annual property tax assessments done.
Okay.
Although we do pass the cost of doing that on to them.
Okay.
That's, I think, a pretty fair summary of our responsibilities. And of course, for the departments that aren't elected office holders, oversight of those departments and making sure that they operate within the guidelines of the county employees handbook.
Okay. Thank you for that. So, broadly speaking, why are you running for office this year?
This would be for re-election for me. When I retired at the beginning of 2012, I wasn't done and willing to go just play golf or sit in a chair and do nothing. And I had basically entertained 2 different ideas. One was to substitute teach, and the other was to maybe run for the county board. I had John Baxter, who had been the public defender. John and I had known each other for years, although he was a Democrat. And he had, by that time, was on the county board. And he had asked if I might be interested in running, even though he knew my political affiliation. It got me to thinking about it, and I decided I'd pursue that instead of the substitute teaching, because I felt like I had a working knowledge of things that others might not bring to the county board. John did, but John was ill at the time, and I think he saw his time there reaching a point where he wasn't going to do this anymore. He was pretty much right with that, with pancreatic cancer. And John had been chairman of the Justice Committee. And besides John and me, no one else on the county board really had the experience from our time as attorneys with the workings of the Sheriff's Department, the Probation Department, the Courts, State's Attorney's Office, the Public Defender's Office. So that, and maybe the possibility of replacing him eventually as chairman of the Justice Committee when he stepped down, is what initially attracted me to do that. Plus, I had been involved at some points in my past, not a lot, but holding office as a precinct committeeman a couple of times over the years before that. So that's what initially attracted me to doing it. And besides John Baxter asking me to do it, there were programs that in my last 4 years I was head public defender in Macon County. And there were a lot of initiatives taking place that time with what I call specialty courts, establishing those. And it was a collaborative effort between all the different stakeholder offices, so the sheriff, the public defender, the probation department, the state's attorney, the Macon County mental health system, and Dr. Norman. Those led to us, while I was still there, getting up and running the Macon County Mental Health Court and the ARI program, which is the Adult Reachability Illinois program that used a more intensively based community-sourced model of dealing with offenders, instead of just shipping them off to prison for low-level, non-violent, non-sex offender types of criminals who would otherwise have been sent to prison because of their past records. Those were all things that I brought to the table that not even John brought to the table. And Dr. Norman, even when she found out I was retiring, drafted me, so to speak, or at least encouraged me to join her with their community restorative boards, which were part of the adult redeployment program. And I was doing that. Going to the county board just seemed like a next logical step of continuing on with what I had started in a different way, making sure the county board saw the value in those programs and that they continued.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And I'd also held one other office. It wasn't something completely new to me to get into government. I had served on the County Mental Health Board years and years ago as a board member also. So, I had experience both with county government, experience as an office holder, experience as a board member, experience what is now the Heritage Health Behavioral Center. It was named something different years ago. Served on their board, so just involvement in community activities has been a part of the past.
Okay. All right. So, it sounds like all things with justice are a pretty big priority for you.
They're the biggest consumer of the county's budget.
Okay, yeah.
At least in terms of its general fund, they are the largest component of how we spend our tax dollars.
Okay. So, what would you say are your other two biggest priorities?
Well, I also have served on the finance committee now for about 6 years or 8 years, and obviously seeing to the husbanding of the county's resources and that our monies are well spent and efficiently spent are also an important priority for me.
Okay. And the third one?
You're going to make me think on that one. Well, I guess I'd have to say the third one there is not only the needs of our office holders, but the needs of their employees.
Okay. All right, thank you.
The financial component also is the priority to the taxpayers.
Right.
So those go hand in hand.
Okay. All right. So for these next two questions, I'm really just looking for kind of bullet points. So first, what do you think are the three biggest priorities for voters on the political right?
You're talking nationally or county, because there's a huge difference.
However you would like to interpret that.
Well, I'm going to talk about it at the county level.
Okay.
Because that's what I'm running. County officers and their platforms have nothing to do with national policies.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing I would say is community safety, fiscal responsibility, and I would say I have a little bit of a libertarian streak to me.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, oftentimes more fiscally conservative but socially liberal
Mm-hmm.
on some things. I'm not sure here. I don't want a long pause while I think. So another one at me. If something pops into my head while we're on the next topic, I'll give you another answer.
Okay, that's just fine. All right, then similar fashion, and since you answered in regard to the county, let's do that again. So what do you think are the three biggest priorities for voters on the political left?
I think the first one on the political left, dealing with a county office holder, is the question of a marijuana dispensary.
Mm-hmm.
Although I might add on that there is a huge disconnect in the knowledge about that, because just as with county ordinances, a dispensary would come into going through ordinance and zoning and regulation that the county only has control of for unincorporated areas.
Mm-hmm.
And the unincorporated areas are largely, there's no communities there. You're talking about the townships.
All right. Two other concerns maybe from the left?
Well, based on the nature of the announcement in the newspaper of the candidates that the Democratic Party filed within the last couple of days to run for county office, I can't divorce them as much from the more national issues, although they also apply locally. Seeing that females are treated as equally in the workforce as males. And from the nature of their statement, I also think that they somehow think county office holders ought to have some opinions about Roe versus Wade. And although I do, those opinions have no bearing on what we as county office holders and county board members can and cannot do.
Mm-hmm. So cannabis dispensaries, women's equality, and abortion rights?
Yeah, That I would say, yeah.
Okay.
Their own press release says those. They seem to think they apply to county offices, and although making sure women are treated fairly and equally, which are, I think all of us agree on.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I could say that's a third point for me as well, is making sure that we treat all our employees, women as well, equally.
Okay. All right. So I do have a few more questions that I'm going to put aside for the moment so that I can get to, so that we have time for questions that I got from voters.
Okay.
And if we have spare time left over, I'll circle back to these other questions. A lot of them you kind of sort of covered already anyway, but...
Well, I will tell you right now, I have time for you to circle back because I'm not doing anything until 3 o'clock.
Okay. I made the mistake of scheduling another interview at noon, which I should have enough time for, but I should have given myself a little more time.
Okay.
So, let's see. How will you protect voting rights?
Well, actually, unless maps are going to be redrawn again within the next 4 years, and I don't think they will be because they're redrawn up based on the census, there's really nothing that a county level officer is going to do or ever vote on that that has a bearing or an effect on voting rights.
Okay.
And that just, whatever effect there is already passed with the most recently redrawn maps that were done according to the last census.
Okay. All right. And what are your budget goals?
My budget goals are to keep the budget basically as flat as we can in terms of increases. And keep it as balanced as we can.
Okay. What are your goals regarding taxes?
To maintain or decrease the tax levy.
Okay. Do you have any specific taxes you're interested in decreasing?
Well, let's see here. To me, it is the overall tax levy, which is what hits property tax holders. That's my main one.
Okay.
If and when there is a dispensary in Macon County, or if and when some other non-dispensary cannabis-related business occurs, I believe that the amount of tax revenue the county would receive is already established.
Okay.
Oh, and although this is a little different than anything you've asked,
Mm-hmm.
I will throw in that the only thing that the county board has not approved at this point is a dispensary in its unincorporated areas. All other cannabis related businesses are and have been approved.
Okay.
And that was done instead of an all or nothing approach. I'm the one who broke out the approval of that while not approving the dispensaries. Because if it had been submitted as a whole, it would have failed.
Right. So if that comes up again, are you interested in approving a cannabis dispensary?
In the unincorporated areas of Macon County, no. And there's a reason for it, and to me it's public safety. As long as the federal government outlaws cannabis, it is a cash-only business.
Mm-hmm.
A cash-only business is an attractive target. And to put it in an unincorporated area where you might have one deputy who's nowhere near anything is asking for a problem.
Okay.
At least in an incorporated area, you have a police officer nearby that respond.
Okay. If you were like in discussions with city council, I know you don't have authority over city council, but would you advocate for dispensaries in the incorporated areas?
Actually, yes. I see no reason for the residents of Macon County to have to drive to Springfield.
Okay. All right. And that the cannabis dispensaries was one of my questions, so we just kind of got to that a little early.
Okay.
All right. So what? Sorry. How will you? Oh, go ahead.
Besides the fact, I don't see the public safety concern for the business or its employees if they are in an incorporated area where you have a reliable police presence.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Then how will you address crime?
Well, I will say this, I immensely disagree with the last change that they made at the state level on their Crime Act, especially in taking away cash bail requirements. That hasn't hit yet, but I don't think even our public defender approves of it. And I was a public defender, and bonds sometimes are set too high. It's not supposed to be for detention. It's supposed to make sure a court appearance.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it needs to have a cash component. So I disagree with that. I think that if that continues on and goes into full effect and isn't changed, we're going to have an immense crime problem because people turn right back on the street. And the only way to address that, and this you have to understand, we can only address through our powers of the purse, is to put more tax dollars into the budgets of the sheriff for both deputies and investigations, but also in the sheriff's budget for the jail. And if that bill emboldens criminals, you'll see more cases filed and even more perhaps demands for more staff by offices such as the probation department, the public defender, and the state's attorney. So, what we can do to address crime, and it would be nice if we had more money, because some of the alternative programs that we developed work. They cut down on recidivism.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it involves getting the state's attorneys and prosecutors to think differently than they once thought on how you define success with a person who's come into the criminal justice system. If that person was reoffending within 1 or 2 years and he was in a revolving door, he got out and within 1 or 2 years he reoffended. You send him away in another 1 or 2 years he reoffended again. And we put him into like the adult redeploy program, or the mental health court, or the drug court. And you got that person, and maybe he'd get reoffended at some point, but he was only systems for 5 or more years. I'd call that a success.
Mm-hmm.
Is it perfect? Is it perfect? No. But it beats the way we're doing things. So to have more money to do that would be nice. But that also, our property tax income goes down as properties age. Our community shrinks. We have to do more with less.
Mm-hmm.
But some other things can and do have a better effect in solving crime, like those the adult redeploy program and those alternative courts. But finding the money for them is difficult because they are costly.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you want to advocate for keeping cash bail, which I understand you probably don't have any legislative authority over. Is that correct?
No, we have no legislative authority over that at all.
Okay. And then you would like to put more money into alternative programs like the mental health court, adult redeploy program, and the drug court. But then you talked about how it's hard to get more money.
Yeah, it's hard to get more money to do this.
Mm-hmm.
It's another thing, and it's a problem with government, period. It's part of why I got into at least an underlying reason why I started looking at our former state's attorney and asked for a special prosecutor to investigate him. But part of it stemmed from the way he was also doing his budget, because I felt he had been dishonest with me on the finance committee.
Okay.
County office holders, state office holders, are always looking to take the prior year's budget, add a certain percentage of that, and go on. And they hit the end of the budget, and they'll spend the money you gave them just because you gave it to them.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of giving it back and then next year coming in with a budget was reflective of what they actually spent. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to break that.
Mm-hmm.
But, that is something I don't like, and I look at it when I see it, and I call office holders out on it when I see it.
Okay. All right. Then my last question from voters would be, from what sources do you get most of your news?
Oh, well, I read the Decatur Herald and Review.
Mm-hmm.
I watch our local news channels, both here in Champaign, not Springfield. I watch Fox News.
Mm-hmm.
I am also a big reader, so pretty much anything that pops on my feed, whether it's a conservative type of piece or a more liberal, I will read.
Okay. So just like various articles from different sources?
Correct.
Okay. Do you get any news from, aside from those ones that happen up on your feed, do you get any news from outlets that you tend to disagree with?
Yeah. Because, some of them are not just what I have say a confirmation bias
Mm-hmm.
for. I'll read all. I may go in deeply if I think they're correct or not.
Mm-hmm.
As an example, even though I don't agree with a lot of his at least takes on things, Leonard Pitts is editorial writer in our paper. I read him every time he's there.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll also read J. Ambrose or Reagan when they're there.
Okay. All right.
Consume the letters to the editor in the paper.
Mm-hmm.
So.
That's a lot of reading to do. You must enjoy it. Okay. Well, that's all my questions from voters. I did have some questions about your. You had talked a bit about your political history, so I'm not going to ask about that now. Do you plan to run for office again in the future?
This will be my last term.
Okay.
Assuming I am elected or re-elected in November, this will be my last term. It would be a 4-year term.
Okay.
And I'll be 76 at the end of that term. And that's long enough. And that would be 14 years on the board.
Okay. All right. And I had another question about your experience, but you talked about that being in the public defender's office, some work as an attorney, and you talked about some of the boards that you served on, and I'll have to circle back to my notes later to write all that up, but anything else in that area that you'd want to add?
No, I think that covers. I was a private attorney for a long time. I was both private and a part-time assistant public defender for years, and reformed the public defender's office when I took over as the chief public defender from a part-time office into a small full-time office. I still serve, although COVID punched a hole in it, on the community restorative boards. Mm-hmm. With Dr. Norman. I've stood in for Dr. Norman on occasions and at her request at a couple of conferences. One was an all-state encompassing conference for counties who already had or were setting up an adult redeploy program. I spoke at that. There was a conference in Springfield dealing with violent crimes and how to deal with it. And I stood in there for her as a speaker. And stood in at another Illinois Criminal Justice Authority meeting over the adult redeploy programs for her. So, that's all volunteer stuff.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that. I had a couple other questions about policy proposals that you have or policies you'd like to overturn, but I am out of time. I've got to get going to my next interview.
All right.
If you'd like, I can email those to you if you'd like to respond to those.
Email them, and I'll see what I can do on them.
Okay. All right. 1 moment.